Welcome back to the channel. Today we're with Tru Blu, Brando's brand new 2024, I think, or 2023 Troopy. Today we're going to fit out the 12-volt system, which is the new REDARC Rogue, and we're going to give hopefully a step-by-step guide as to how to install one of these things. So let me hand you over to Ando and we'll get stuck into it.
Welcome back to another episode of Mud, Mods and Beers. Today is yet another 12-volt installation, except this time no canopies. We're switching it up and we're doing Brando's brand new Troopy. So Brando has some pretty big plans for this Troopy. He plans on doing the lap around the Great Australia. And for that, he needs some 12-volt setup. So, Brando, we'll go to the back. Yeah, we'll have a look at everything because he has done some stuff already. So what have we got so far? We've got a nice Bushman 65 litre fridge. Got a couple gas burners.
Few drawers.
Yeah, so the main objective today is to pretty much sort out the 12 volt. We're talking batteries, we're talking air compressors, water tanks, lights, outlets, the whole thing. That's today's issue. So I'm not exactly sure what we're doing because this is one of REDARC's new Rogue setups. But I will pass you on over to Baz and he's going to run you through everything that needs to go on.
G'day guys, so you've come with me. Brando's already whipped up a nice little board here to mount everything on. As you can see, we've got the Battery Manager 30 and the new TVMS Rogue, along with a fuse block, which is already installed, ready for today. If you have a look behind us, we've got all the gear ready to go, bits and bobs, cable. There's a fair bit of it, but we're obviously putting a fair bit in. And what I'll do is, first of all, I will show you our plans with the board. So, come over here. I've drawn up a bit of a schematic here, which if I sort of explain it to you, come forward. So here we got the BMS, right? As you can see on the side here, it correlates directly with the plugs on the BMS. And then we've got the Rogue here as well, showing how we're going to go about doing it all. So things like the shunt, we're going to run a bus bar for all the negatives. They'll be mounted on the rear of the board to keep the install nice and neat. And yeah, we'll rip in and show you step by step as we do it. Hopefully can be informative for everyone out there. Brando, he went with the Rogue. Obviously it's, you could say, the next gen of the TVMS in the REDARC family. Couple of benefits. The old TVMS has got the physical fuses. This one here's got digital fuses. So you've got here we've got the 1240, which is the 12 volt 40 amp Rogue, and we've got 10 output channels here, each rated to 10 amps. So one of the good things about the Rogue is it can handle analog inputs as well, and obviously the added benefit of the digital fuses as well. We've still got our sensor input and our sensor monitoring and inputs on this side as well. That's going to come in handy in this particular install because he's got lights around the roof, so we can have them switched in two places, an in-mount cab and also through the Red Vision screen as well. So really excited to see how this goes. Obviously partnered with the BMS, which has got a proven track record, should be a very reliable 12 volt system.
So it all looks like it's in a bit of shambles at the moment, but pretty much if we're just trying to figure out the best way to do things. Best way we've thought about is you run your big thick cables first. So talking about the cable that goes from your primary battery to your secondary, you know, your compressor, just all those big thick cables, because if you end up running all your small little ones all over the shop, there's a high chance that it's going to be harder to try and feed your big ones through, where if you run your little ones at the end, much easier, much bendier. That's what we're into right now.
Alright, Baz has got a little trick for putting Coro in, so what do we do? Get a ring spanner?
Get a ring spanner. And you're pretty much just riding it through.
So what's happening here is, Baz, we're fitting all the cables through the engine bay. So this is for the air compressor, the ignition, and on this side we have done the this one right here is for the main 12 volt feed. This is coming in from the cranking battery from the alternator. They're all going underneath the car and coming up
I don't know, Brando has
through the grommets in the floor of the car. They're coming up through the grommets into the car and then ultimately heading across over here to where the battery sits. That's where the TVMS will sit and where the brains will happen. So we're just running cables at the minute until we do that. We're probably not going to shoot much more because running cables isn't the most interesting viewing in the world. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah.
Where are we up to now?
We're running the cabling for appliances and lights and extending appliance cables where they're too short, just all over to where the 12 volt system's going to mount.
Make sure when you're doing heat shrink, you're not just staying in the one spot, you're going over it like this, otherwise you can burn through it, leave marks, which is not what you want. You just want to go up and down, applying an even distribution of heat. Not going anywhere. So we've run the compressor and the mains from the starter battery to the second. So all we got to do now, this is just the active that comes straight from the compressor. Over there, as you can see, there's actually a MIDI fuse that's going to be breaking the active that goes from the cranking battery to the second battery in the back, so a little bit of protection, which is very much needed. And then we're going to place the breaker for the compressor further down the ute, more accessible place pretty much. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm up to, Jeddah.
Is that the...
Yeah.
What you're on about, yeah?
Yeah.
What was it again?
I don't know what it's called, but it has like a MIDI. Is that MIDI?
MIDI fuse.
MIDI. Yeah, MIDI fuse. That was the second battery on it. MIDI fuse.
There seems to be an awful lot of standing around and not a lot of work being done in here.
No doubt, let us say good day to everyone.
There's also...
Nice one. Where's your Mods and Beer shirt, T-Ren? Come on, let's go.
Sorry, I forgot I had my second shift today.
Alright guys, day 2 of the mighty Troopy 12 volt build. So day 1, just a bit of a recap, we ran all the wires. Today we should be able to start hooking up the 12 volt board, which has the Manager 30 and the Rogue on it. To give you a proper grasp on what we're connecting and how we're connecting it, let's just quickly run through what he's going to have in the car. So Brando, you've got these fantastic gull wings here, and inside here you've got some USBs and some cigarette sockets. So
Yep.
why have you opted for that?
Well, pretty much just you can't, have enough charging ports, I guess. Just to charge everything, the 270 awning has USB, ends to light up to the top. So plenty there. I'm going to put camera gear in there. So charging camera gear, whatnot, portable chargers.
Fantastic.
Pretty much, yeah.
And this is also a sort of workbench, so this would be fantastic with that. Just before we continue around the car, just in the cab there, one of the great aspects of the Rogue is it allows multiple switching. So we've got these Rock 9s around the roof. So we're going to have the Rock 9s in the Red Vision screen so you control it through the app, but also it allows you to have an in-cab switch as well, which is fantastic. So in the cab here, we've got a switch for the Rock 9s, which we've obviously run the cable through the car to where the Rogue's going to mount, and we'll show you how we connect that up a little bit later on. So moving around, we hit the back here, Brando, and the first thing that I'm drawn to is obviously the Red Vision screen. You've gone ahead and mounted already, so decided to put it there for ease of use, or?
Yeah. Originally we were going to put it down here, but a bit too low, even though I'm short. Bit too low, I think. But bring it up here, looks nice and neat, eye level, easy to control. Have a look at everything. So yeah, and it clears up a space, so I can do more storage there. So pretty
so
much
under
it.
there you've got the compressor as well.
Compressor,
I see.
Yep.
Compressor, and you were thinking about putting a 240 volt socket there. Were you still doing that, or are you?
I think I'm gonna give it a miss.
Give that a miss?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But we
Yep.
are still putting a 350 watt inverter in?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
And then also we've got these orange and white LED strips on both doors, also in both of the gull wings as well. We probably didn't see that when we were over there, but they also have these strips there.
Yep.
Also, we've got underneath the floor water pump for the water tank.
Yep.
So we'll be looking to run that as well. We're going to be doing that, a similar thing with the Rogue and the Rock 9s. So with the water pump on this gull wing, we've got more here, Brando. So you're going to plumb your air up here, obviously.
Yep. Yep.
So you've got the air compressor switch, but also we're going to utilize the other switch here for the water pump because you want to show the good folks what's behind there?
Yeah. Yep. Sure. If I can get the wing nuts off, but might have to do a time lapse on this.
Well, just while you're doing that, so what's on this side? Another USB-C, and a cigarette socket?
Yep. Yep.
Fantastic. So power in both gull wings, which is fantastic.
And then we have installed this one. This one's from Thorburns. It's an APW vent, I think they call it. And we've got water in, water out, and we've got a solar in and a power out, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
So-
So the way we're going to wire it is when he puts his foldable solar blanket, we can just plug it straight into the car there. And this is going to be an output which we're going to wire to be rated to 30 amps, which will run pretty much any appliance that'll have an Edison plug on it. So that's really cool. So obviously that stuff being there, we're going to have the water pump, a secondary switching position for the water pump as well, which is an awesome feature of the Rogue, I feel. So I'm really excited to see how that performs. Moving forward, in this midsection of the vehicle, on the driver's side, behind the driver's seat, is going to be where the brains of the operation is. That's going to be where the battery's mounted, the BMS and Rogue, and then on the far side is where the second fridge is going to be mounted. So we've got all the wiring in for that done. Yeah, day one, all the wiring's done. So day two, we can start fitting it off. So let's rip into it.
So I'm just here, we're just doing a few Anderson connections. So this is for the water pump, and then this is for the fridge, I believe. And I'm not sure what this one's for, but it needs an Anderson on it anyway, so we're going to put these two Andersons on this oven. That's what the other one's for. Tricks of the trade here, guys. Look at that little neat number. Ooh. That's way neater than I would do. Brando's got 5 SIGI/USB outlets on this side, which we showed you earlier. So Baz has run 2 circuits that'll go through the fuse box and into here. So these are what did we say? These were rated 5 amps each.
Yeah, so you can get USB and cigarette sockets that are now rated to 5 amps. So you've got USB, USB-C, and one of these will be a cigarette socket. They're pretty standard though.
Yeah.
So we've run our 3mm cable, which is rated up to 15 amps. Yeah, we've obviously got 3 here, 2 there, so 2 circuits.
Yeah.
Making sure that we're not restricting power. Not that they'll ever pull that much, but you know what I mean, we want to make sure that there's enough power there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brando has mounted, so we've got 2 Andersons on the wall there. One's for the oven, one's for the switch, the fridge. So that's, the Andersons are all done. The compressor has been wired up. We're just waiting. We've got to connect the loom up. But if we go around this side, we've made a bit of progress over here too. So the one of the light switch, they've been riveted in. We've just got to connect this up through the Rogue into the system, and then same as the other side, these 2 will go straight into the fuse box. This is a switch for the compressor. This will be a switch for the water pump, and the air lines all being connected for the compressor too. So definitely making progress. So with that, that's the end of day 2. We've got all the cables run, pretty much all the accessories are wired in from the accessory end, and they're all run into where the new Rogue head unit's going to go. So tomorrow is fun day. Tomorrow we get to connect everything up and finally get this 12 volt in action. So we'll take you through tomorrow on how we're going to connect the Rogue up and how all the accessories connect into the Rogue. So It is tomorrow. It is day 3, the exciting day. Today, we get to put everything together, hook everything up, put everything in the back, turn it all on, chill the fridge down, get the beers cold and get stuck into it. Baz is going to lead the charge today. First thing we're going to do is wire up the Rogue on the bench as much as we can so we don't have to do too much in the car. And then once it's all wired up, bring it into the car and finish connecting everything into it. So those are the steps. So without further ado, get the Rogue wired up.
Morning guys, day 3. Unfortunately we didn't quite get to the board yesterday, but we've got the whole car fit out. So we've just got 2 switches to finish in there. So we'll crack on with that this morning. But today's the day we get to actually get to the 12 volt board, which is all the REDARC gear and the Rogue, which we're really excited to do. So if you have a look here on the front of the board here, we've got a battery manager 30 here that's going to handle all of the incoming charge. The Rogue here, that's going to handle our distribution, and we've got a fuse block here as well. So obviously we've got the shore power plugs into this side, and then if you have a look on this side, we'll have our inputs for the BMS. We'll show you wiring that up a little bit later on. Coming around the corner, we've got all of our breakers. So we've got solar, this is a kill switch. Because the battery's not accessible, it's going to be built in. We thought it was really important to have a kill switch because the battery terminals aren't quick and easily accessible. So we thought that was a really good safety feature to go with. We've got the fuse block, the mains, the sub mains, and the inverter all on here. The reason we've opted for an isolator is so that we can actually isolate the fixed panel on the roof. What I found with the Manager 30 that's in my car, how it prioritizes the green energy is really, really good. However, if my solar panel's producing say 8 amps and then I turn the car on, the battery manager will allocate that 8 amps for solar, but then my solar panel may be produced 2 amps. So it's not actually allowing me to have the full input. So if the car's running anyway, like I'm traveling somewhere, I'll just take all of the input from the battery. So the clean energy thing sort of cancels itself out. So we're actually going to isolate the solar so that when you're driving along, it's just taking all of the charge from the car, and we're kind of in a roundabout way bypassing that function that the battery manager has. So that's why there's a solar isolator there. So coming further around to the back here, we've got shunt. That's obviously going to measure all of our incoming and outgoing charge. We've opted for a bus bar here for all of the negatives. Obviously we'll get into it a bit later, but there's only one ground terminal on the shunt, so we're actually going to link that to a bus bar to make it a lot easier to fit all the circuits in. I've already gone ahead and connected up the bus bar cables, and this is obviously the positive reference for the battery, so obviously we'll get to wiring that very, very soon. So as you will have seen on the Rogue, it comes with the plug sets. What we've done is we've mounted the Rogue, and the plug sets have come through the board below where their corresponding plug lies in the Rogue. What we've done for ease of use is we've put these terminal blocks below it. And the reason we've done that is because it's quite a tight space in the car. So once the board's installed, it's going to be quite hard to get down and do inline solder joints, things like that. So what we're actually going to do is fold these down into these terminal blocks. And then once it's in the car, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to come in the below side and connect all the circuits in. So we're going to rip into with that. Next, we're going to focus on pre-wiring as much of the positives as we can. So from our circuit breakers and isolators on the other side of the board, we're going to go ahead and lug and heat shrink and pre-wire as much of the board as we can. So the solar we can do, obviously the load side of each one of those circuit breakers. So that's what we're going to crack on with next. Put a nice bendy bend on it. Ooh. Ooh, that's hot.
It's not hot for you.
Hot still.
Hot like what?
Hot like sunrise.
So nice.
Sunrise.
It's handy that your fingers are small so we can see what you're doing.
Dude, come on, this is going on YouTube, mate.
Hey, come on, man. Okay, working our way across the board now. We've got our solar isolator. So it comes from the isolator to this green plug on the BMS, labeled with the solar there. When you guys are wiring that, make sure that the battery manager 30 can only handle an open circuit voltage of 32 volts. So there's no limit on the wattage or the amps per se, as long as the combined load isn't greater than an open circuit voltage of 32 volts. You can find those ratings from manufacturers when you're purchasing your solar panels. Next, we've got a kill switch. Essentially, all that does is that's going to isolate the negative going to the third battery. Because it's in this box, it's enclosed, the battery terminals aren't accessible. So I think that's probably a smart feature to have, just in case something goes wrong with any of the appliances. We can just hit that kill switch and we'll be good from there. The inverter, we haven't done any wiring for the inverter yet. Obviously, we're gonna have to wait till it's in the vehicle to do the wiring for the inverter. The fuse block, obviously we come from the fuse block in behind the board and out here. Next, we've got the Rogue, obviously comes from here, and then that's connecting into the Rogue there. Finally, the sub-mains, obviously that comes in there, and that also comes to the positive terminal on your BMS. Something for those DIYs at home, this plug takes a maximum of 6 gauge. Most of your wiring can be done in 8 gauge. Anything more than 3 meters should be 6 gauge. But if you're doing a DIY, maybe talk to an expert and just see if they'll organize or give you some cable sizing for your amperage rating. The cables we've done for this has been severely over-engineered, but obviously we want to future-proof. He will look to run a 3,000 watt inverter in the future and induction. So that's where we're up to so far. Stay tuned and we'll get this in the car. So what we're doing here is we're doing a little bit of prep. Obviously there's a lot of cables here, so what we're going to do is just feed them out the window here, and then we'll get the box in place, and then I'll give Brandon the cables as he needs to connect them.
So you're in the hot seat, Brandon.
He's in the hot seat.
Wiring everything up.
Well, considering it's his car and he's going to do a lap around Australia, if something ever goes wrong, it's really important that he's familiar with his own 12 volt system. Right. So I think that's a benefit for getting him to do this stage. So if anything goes wrong, he at least can do some troubleshooting himself, especially if he's in a remote area or not in self-service, something like that.
That's a big step, getting that in. So, quick situation update. Brando has been doing all the work and Baz and Andy have been doing nothing. So, it's slowly coming together. Am I right?
Pretty much. As he said, it's important for him to know how it all works. So if he's ever stranded, plus I can drink more beer.
So we've got a lot of the cables connected, and I guess the rest of tonight's going to be connecting up the rest of the cables. And then we will have to do a 4th day where we are
Connecting the cables.
programming it. We've got to fit off a couple more appliances. So Brando needs to buy a second fridge and oven. We're going to wait for the show in a couple of weeks' time and buy them there, and then we'll do another video after the show once we've got all the appliances in. We'll go through and program the REDARC app, and then hopefully we can show you a functional system.
So the next step from here is we're going to come back to you when all of that's done and we've got the system pretty much fitted in and we're just starting to program everything. So We will see you then.